250 years ago, America was just an idea. But the U.S. Army made it real. Battle by battle, brick by brick.
Well, we're gonna get this cleaned up for you.
Generation by generation. It began as a band of neighbors picking up arms to fight injustice, but it has evolved into the most feared fighting force in the history of mankind. The uniforms may have changed, and the tools have transformed, but the heart remains the same. Why we fight and why we stand together does not change.
Your mission starts now.
Quitting is not my vocabulary.
The United States Army is the heartbeat of our free country. It's about loyalty. It's about duty and respect.
I will lead by example.
It is selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. Tonight, we celebrate the Army's 250 years of service. This is your Army, and these are your soldiers. At the core of the Army is people. People who choose a standard and then live up to it. Training is how the Army transforms these people into soldiers, one hard day at a time.
Position of attention, move!
Left, right, face. Hand cannons.
Hand cannons!
Exercise.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Exercise.
Every soldier's story begins here. It's called the first 100 yards. It's the opening crucible of basic training. Strangers learn to move as one, to think we before me, to trade comfort for discipline, and trade egos for respect.
The first 100 yards is their true introduction to the United States Army, especially the infantry.
Let's go.
For them, it is their first dramatic indoctrination getting off the bus. This is the United States Army, this is the infantry of what I just signed up for. Shock and awe, it's meant to be chaotic, but we control all that chaos.
Over the next 18 weeks, you will transform yourself from a civilian into an infantry soldier. Only if you have stepped into this journey. And you will begin your journey today by accomplishing your first Army mission. And your mission starts now. Follow me! Go!
Go! Go!
For most of them, they've seen a movie, they maybe seen Full Metal Jacket, they don't know really what's going on. This is your first test.
Go, 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 run!
They're just blindsided, smoke bombs, grenades, machine gun fire, drill sergeants in their face, yelling.
You will do what everybody else does, and you will do what we say.
The point of all the physical, mental, and emotional domains is to break them down.
I'm going to your life up if you don't get back with a platoon. Hurry up, go!
They're moving forward, trying to achieve teamwork. How can I move together as a cohesive unit, tying it in, getting taught the Army values? Everybody's coming from all 50 states, the territories, they have a different backgrounds, a whole mixture of America's melting pot. And to break it down to America Green. This is the Army, this is your new future.
Get up, get up, get up, let's go. Stop feeling sorry for yourself, let's go.
And from that, now I'm going to rebuild you. And now I'm gonna build you up to what the Army wants.
The Army's foundation rests on a set of values that guide every soldier's action on and off the battlefield. They're learned here through following orders, putting the team first, owning every mistake and every success.
The foundation of the Army is built off these 7 core values: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. All these will get taught and ingrained in them just like the hierarchy of command. My favorite core value, respect, is paramount in the military.
Starting position, move!
Get down!
I can't just demand a trainee's respect. I am then leading from the front as a drill sergeant. If I'm not just saying do this, you're also watching me do this, so it goes 2 ways.
Get up, get fucking elbows down!
Heavy load to the ground!
So tying everything together from today's event, the soldierization of everything I've seen personally through my career, it builds them up for better success if they properly attain to the Army values. Now that son or daughter is actually like, no, Mom, let me help you hold that. Let me help you carry your bags on top of my bags. Let me get the door for you. Basic humanism of responsibility is the best thing they learn from the military, and just being a good citizen.
The motto we have is that flag right there. Burn the ships. Does anyone think they know what that means? What?
No turning back.
There you go. If we're committing to something, we're committing 100%. Yes, this is going to be your home for the next 18 weeks. Just so y'all know, quitting is not in my vocabulary. All of you will finish these 18 weeks. Do you understand?
250 years. That's how long the U.S. Army has stood watch over this great nation, defending our freedom through every storm. In the bloodiest battles of the 20th century, American soldiers answered the call, fighting wherever liberty was at risk. In 1917, as the world was consumed by war, the U.S. Army entered a conflict like no other. In the trenches of France, soldiers faced barbed wire, poison gas, and relentless artillery. At Cantigny, they launched their first major assault. At Saint-Mihiel, they executed a swift and decisive attack, proving American strength. And during the Meuse-Argonne offensive, the largest battle in U.S. history, they shattered enemy lines, helping bring the war to its end. In 1941, when the world plunged into war yet again, the Army was ready. From the deserts of North Africa to the hedgerows of France, from the islands of the Pacific to the streets of Berlin, U.S. soldiers carried the weight of the free world. On June 6, 1944, they stormed the beaches of Normandy, charging through the surf and gunfire and climbing cliffs against overwhelming odds. Victory was never certain, but they fought fiercely and triumphed. Their fight wasn't just for America. It was for millions silenced by tyranny. 5 years after World War II, another struggle for freedom erupted. In Korea, the Army faced not only a determined enemy, but brutal winters and impossible odds. In the Battle of Incheon, their fierce fighting forced the North Korean Army to retreat. At the Pusan perimeter, they held the line. And in the frozen hills of Chosin, they fought with every ounce of strength to defend liberty. Through the blood, sweat, and sacrifice of these generations, the U.S. Army has withstood the test of time. Even in the darkest hours, one promise has remained unbroken. This will defend.
Across 2.5 centuries, the Army has been built by families, passing down service like a living heirloom. Each generation teaches the next what it means to wear the uniform, to stand together, and put the mission and the nation first. This is a living legacy, carried by family, forged in sacrifice, and defined by duty.
My dad's in the Army. My grandfather was in the Army and Navy. My great-grandfather was military. Great-great-grandfather was in the military. It goes all the way up to the Revolutionary War.
This incredibly unique family has ancestors who have fought in nearly every single American battle since the Revolutionary War. For generations, the Mace family's service has reflected the history of the United States Army.
So do you guys know how far back our family history goes? I'm fortunate enough to be in a family of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It was 6 great-grandpas ago, we're talking Revolutionary War. So Moses Stone was a soldier in the Revolution as a corporal in Captain Samuel Bernard's company, which marched on the Lexington Alarm of 19 April, 1775. With the Revolutionary War specifically, there's a special connection for me because the Army Reserve is full of citizen soldiers. We're ordinary people. And when we talk about these people that were there at the Revolutionary War, These were not professional soldiers. These were people who were running their regular lives that then became soldiers in a time of need. Looks like us a little bit.
He looks like George Washington.
He does look a little bit like George Washington, but yeah. So in the Civil War, we got a couple people. Cornelius Stone Mace.
There we go. He was from Maine.
Yeah, so he was from the Union Army, and he fought in the Civil War. And then we have
George Washington Light.
George Washington Light.
Your great aunt Suzanne found this metal box, opened it up, and it was full of letters that George Washington Light had written home to his dad during the Civil War.
Yes, this is not a copy. This is actual paper from the Civil War, and this is his handwriting. It says, I hope that I will have the courage enough to stand the fire and not flinch from duty when called upon.
He was really there. This isn't a story I'm reading in a book, it's a fictional. Here was a guy who was really going through it and being honest that we're all gonna be afraid, but I hope I can stand the fire and do my duty.
Yeah. Talking about World War I, this is Jesse Hunter Newberry. This is your great-great-grandpa. He was in the 21st Balloon Company.
Like a hot air balloon.
Because back then to do reconnaissance, they didn't have radios, they didn't have planes that could move slowly with cameras to see what was going on. So they relied on balloons, and he's actually buried in Arlington.
2 decades later, the world was at war again. The lessons learned in the skies over Europe had reshaped the Army. It had now become a modern force ready to meet a new global challenge.
This is your great-grandpa.
That's Lloyd Eldon Mace.
My dad was Army Air Force. In World War II, he was an experienced combat pilot.
Yeah.
When my dad was shot down, he was missing in action. The Secretary of War desires to express his deep regret that your son, First Lieutenant Lloyd E. Mace, has been reported missing in action. But 4.5 months later, the Chinese underground, who kept him hidden for 4.5 months, bring him back all well and safe. We actually have the telegram saying, all is well, I'm back. And so that's just, again, so real to feel these papers in your hand, you know.
Robert's father, Lloyd Mace, would continue to serve during the Korean War, and his brother served in Vietnam.
Purple Heart you get when you get injured.
Yep.
And he survived.
And Granddad had a Purple Heart as well. Yep.
I also always wanted to fly. My dad flew. My uncles flew. This is me in my beret when I was with the 82nd Airborne Division.
Matthew and his brother Brandon served throughout the War on Terror, doing tours in Iraq, Kuwait, and Afghanistan.
I felt a desire to serve. I felt that if it's something that I could do, that I should do it.
So the newest military member of our family is my son Thor.
And I will support and defend.
And he made the choice before he even graduated high school.
This is my dad when he was a kid. So what do you think he wanted to be when he grew up?
A pilot.
A pilot. So obviously this is what he wanted to do. Follow your dreams. If there's something you want to do, you can do it.
Yep.
Selfless service means showing up without your name in lights. Our soldiers don't step forward for applause or vanity. They do it for the teammate beside them, the families they'll never meet, and a nation that relies on them. Within the world of special operations, most of what they accomplish will never make headlines. Missions that begin in darkness and end without credit. Their success is measured in lives saved, threats avoided, and teammates brought home, not in public recognition. This is the true meaning of selfless service.
I remember 9/11 vividly, and I told myself I would sooner fight and die in a foreign land before another American is killed on American soil. The 160th, it's the premier aviation organization in the world with helicopters. If it's special operations, we're working with them to provide precision rotary wing support. A lot of what we do is going to be at night. It is what we call graduate level flying.
Born from the lessons of a failed 1980 hostage rescue, the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, known as the Night Stalkers, was activated to give U.S. Special Operations units their own elite air support. For over 4 decades, the Night Stalkers have built a legacy of flying when others cannot, often under the cover of darkness.
There's one mission that really sticks out. We're overseas, we put in a ground force, and we were getting shot at on infill. It was craziness on the ground, and we had a young soldier that got shot. And so I was actually flying the casualty evacuation bird. And if you're injured, we were coming in, come hell or high water. I put the coals to it, getting there as fast as I can. I had a chase bird. I told him to drop off about 4 miles from the target area. And we had our rotary wing fire assets overhead, and I'm talking with them. And it was a north-south running valley. And he asked, are you coming north to south or south to north? And I go, bro, I'm coming in west to east. I'm coming in hot and get out of my way. And he's like, okay. And I came over this ridge line, and it looked like a fireworks show with a Pink Floyd concert. Tracers and AAA and lasers and everything everywhere. I told my crew chiefs in the back, just don't even touch your door guns. There's friendlies all over the target area. Our priority is to get this guy. We swooped in, we were on the ground less than 90 seconds, loaded the young guy up, took off, put the coals to it again. We just went as fast as these aircraft will go and got the guy to the hospital. Medals don't mean anything to me because they're just more pieces of flair to put on your uniform. But the best recognition I ever got was our commander had went and visited him in the hospital. He was intubated, he couldn't talk, but he had a whiteboard. And the thing he wrote on there was, please thank the air crew. That's all I needed, and I was ready to go do more. When I look at selfless service, I think about the small amount of the population that actually serves in the military. You're giving of yourself to the greater good.
Paratroopers turned the sky into a doorway. From the first combat drops of World War II to today's mass tactical operations, the mission is the same. Put disciplined soldiers exactly where they're needed. Exactly when it matters. Every jump is an unbroken promise to the team beside them, the riggers who pack their chutes, and the nation they serve. There is one word for it: loyalty.
The purpose of the Airborne is to be able to project power behind enemy lines with speed, surprise, and audacity, dropping men and women from the sky in parachutes. And we can do that anywhere we can get our airplanes, behind, beside, in front of enemy lines, and be able to drop massive combat power in a moment's notice. Without the paratroopers in World War II, D-Day would have never been successful. No way that those men were going to make it off the beach without the Airborne going in first and disrupting the enemy behind their own line.
As a kid, I had very clear understanding that my grandfather served in a war long before. He joined the Army shortly after Pearl Harbor and joined the paratroopers for the adventure. And I think he cared about being the one who's at the cutting edge of this new thing called being a paratrooper. You know, nobody really knew what it was. He and the men of the 82nd all boarded their planes and crossed over the channel on June 6th. He jumped in those early morning hours, and they started fighting the enemy. Eventually, he got into a firefight with the Germans, and he was wounded. He got shot in between his middle and ring finger, and the bullet went all the way up his arm, and then eventually lodged in his bicep. He was captured and, immediately ferried behind enemy lines. To stop the gangrene, they performed an operation on him. They chopped off his forearm without any anesthetic. And he later woke up in a schoolhouse in France. August of '44, Patton's Third Army came and liberated the town. So he got back to England and then eventually got back to the United States. He was sent to a hospital. His first day in the ward, there's a nurse doing rounds and preparing soldiers for amputations, and her name was Rosemary, and she was my grandmother. My grandfather endured that horrible experience in World War II, but something great came out of it, and it was their family. That set me on the trajectory of trying to be like him. My first time jumping out of an airplane, I was in jump school, I was a lieutenant. I was the last person out of the plane. So I had a lot of time to think about, man, am I gonna do this? So I made that first exit and my body twisted 180 degrees. And I see the skin of a C-17 aircraft pass by me. And it was just completely and utterly surreal. Eventually, my parachute opened and hit the ground and was ready to go back up for the next one. Paratroopers are the best type of soldiers. They're the best type of leaders, and they're the person that you want by your left or right side. There's just something special about paratroopers.
While our soldiers keep the standard in the field, the others keep it at home. Our Army families hold the line when no one is watching, so the mission can go on.
My wife and I are high school sweethearts, so she has been there long before I was a soldier. I served in the 82nd Airborne Division. I've been in the Army a total of 13 years. Been served in 15 different countries. The sacrifice that families, spouses, and children make when the soldier deploys, it's definitely difficult.
So when he deploys, I go into what I call deployment mode. This, like, I can do everything by myself mode. I'm just a very, very independent person because of the military.
This is yours. At the end of 2021, the entire world started to realize that Russia was going to invade Ukraine. The 82nd Airborne Division has a brigade on standby. Come January of 2022, we became that unit.
For Captain Bill Malcolm, a sudden call to deploy in 2022 came as a surprise. With little notice and a newborn son at home, the reality of family separation became all too real.
My son had been born that November, and in February I'm deploying. And so that was an extreme whirlwind of emotion in which I'm holding my son maybe for the last time.
For Bill, the pain of separation runs deep in his own family history, a constant reminder of what's at stake every time a soldier deploys.
My uncle was killed in combat in Vietnam. I remember growing up wondering, why is everybody so sad about this? He died as such a brave man. And I even remember thinking that up until, I was a lieutenant and I graduated Ranger School. I remember calling my grandmother and saying, "Are you impressed I graduated Ranger School?" And she was not. She was concerned. I have a son myself, but I'm leading 120 Americans who are feeling that same heartache and that same dread that I'm feeling with my son. Going back to the Army values, I have a duty to be focused on the mission, be focused on their well-being, and ultimately get them home alive.
For 250 years, the United States Army has fought many of their battles abroad, but its heart still beats strongest at home. And in the end, behind every soldier stands a strong family, resilient and proud. Personal courage isn't a moment. It's a muscle that the Army builds under stress and under strict standards. But those lessons don't end at the gate. They become a lifetime set of values, steady under pressure, grounded in integrity, ready to do what's right when it's hard. I asked my good friend, Jamie Lee Curtis, who lives on the edge of the fires in Los Angeles, to speak to this story.
It was January 7th, 2025, and my city was on fire.
We're surrounded by flames right near Palisades Charter High School, several homes on fire.
We are in Altadena. This is an incredible wind-driven fire. There are so many homes here in danger. It has quickly exploded into more than 200 acres, and it keeps growing.
It was a terrifying night for all of us, but the courage of many unsung heroes saved neighbors, loved ones, and the rest of the city.
You got 72 years of history here. All my mother's pictures when she was a kid, my grandparents, my aunties. Everybody grew up here. My name is Wes Griffin III. Everybody usually calls me Big West. I was born and raised in Altadena. That was home. That night of the fire, there are no lights. I could see Eaton Canyon, the glow, ambers flying all through the air. The fire was jumping across the ridge towards my side. I knew it's time to go. Before I left my house, I asked Jesus, excuse me, asked Jesus to save my mother's house. If it's your will, God, save my mother's house. It wasn't in God's will. He had something else planned. The atmosphere was survival mode. But one of the things I learned in the Army, leave no man behind. Real simple. My neighbor came up to me and, can you help my father? It hit me because he's paraplegic. And I got in my vehicle, came back up to the war zone, saw him laying in the bed with this look on his face like, Wes, can you help me? Yes, sir. Yes, I can. And let God use me and give me the strength that I needed to lift him from ground zero to the back of a SUV. Probably about 30 minutes later, the house burnt down. Out of all the disaster areas you've been to, does this compare to anything you've ever seen?
This is probably the worst.
Really, Colonel?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like a war zone.
It's like a war zone. Sure is.
And I'm thankful for the Army Corps of Engineers to help me in my situation.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. When there's a disaster, the Army Corps is called into action to help remove this fire ash and debris from these parcels, yours being one of them. Somewhere on the order of 13,000 properties were consumed by this fire. So the scale is enormous in terms of property, the loss of lives. So the purpose of the program is to come here and remove the public health and safety threat. We go in and remove all of the fire ash and debris. That's the original structure that burned to the ground, any furniture or possessions that were inside that burned up, as well as remove the foundations to allow a fresh building lot to then rebuild their future home on it.
General George Washington appointed the first engineer officers of the Army during the American Revolution.
The Army Corps of Engineers does civil and emergency response operations. We also do military construction projects and a couple of other tasks, depending really on the needs of the government.
The Army Corps of Engineers has a unique organization in being, which covers the entire United States.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has evolved from battlefield logistics like clearing mines and building bridges to large-scale construction and disaster relief. They helped tame the Mississippi with levees, built landmarks such as the Washington Monument and the Pentagon, and respond after hurricanes, earthquakes, and tornadoes. Today, seeing the Army Corps on our streets, clearing debris, stabilizing hillsides, reopening lifelines, I'm reminded how strong we can be together. Army Corps of Engineers is helping to make it home again.
The phoenix will rise from the ashes.
Wow.
And when the ashes are gone, you will be able to envision your new home here on this lot.
What do you do during that moment's notice? I was taught from the military, do what's necessary to help your fellow man. And so me at 65 years old, that's what I've learned to do. We'll hear about catastrophes, but you would never think it would happen to you. But the day it happens, prepare yourself. Don't lose it. Be strong and do what you have to do to survive.
The 75th Ranger Regiment is America's premier special operations unit. Fast, precise, and relentless. It's worth remembering that every Ranger is a volunteer. They volunteer first for the Army, then for Airborne, then for Ranger training, and again for Ranger Regiment. Few of us can grasp that degree of commitment. To me, that's integrity in its highest form.
My name is Staff Sergeant J. Mark Johnson. We here on Army Airfield in Savannah, Georgia, with the 75th Ranger Regiment.
J. Mark Johnson, 6 points.
I've been playing football since I was in first grade. Pop Warner, then high school, then earned a scholarship to Jackson State University while I played college ball. And then I ended up getting drafted in the 6th round from the Minnesota Vikings in 2008. My main position was wide receiver, but I got drafted as a punt returner. So I was a return specialist. The last team I played for was the Arizona Cardinals. And I had to make a decision because football always provided the physical challenges. School, that provided the mental challenge. So I wanted to go back to school, finish my 2 master's degrees, and started my PhD program. And then I was trying to figure out something that can satisfy both of my needs. And I was talking with my older brother, and special operations came up. And when it's all said and done, it was the Ranger Regiment. It was the best fit for me.
Their missions: seize airfields, conduct high-risk raids, capture or eliminate high-value targets anytime, anywhere, in any weather.
So when I went to basic, I believe I was 34. I was considered the old man there. But by beat men running, by beat men push-ups, not even the drill sergeants, I wasn't considered the old man no more. And then 37 while I was in Ranger school, the amount of things I had to overcome, it was very challenging and rewarding once I did it. One of my greatest accomplishments in my life, outside of my kids, is not being drafted to the NFL. It's graduating Ranger school. The Ranger Regiment challenged me physically and mentally at the same time. To jump out of planes, to shoot guns. They are paying me to do those things. It's a dream job.
Built on small team discipline and trust, they are among the most lethal and precise units in the world.
Integrity, especially in this organization, is everything. We gotta be able to trust you to do the right thing. And if you can't trust in this organization, you're gonna get someone hurt or worse. When we go on deployments or we go on any type of training events and things like that, we are worried about, number one, mission success, but also taking care of the brother that's to your left, that's to your right. You have to love being around each other. I mean, it's a brotherhood like no other. You're serving the people of our country. You're not just serving yourself. Once you make it to the NFL level, everybody tries to make the Hall of Fame. One thing we got here is our wall of honor, and that's the brothers that we lost, whether it's killed in action, killed in training. I get chills walking through certain hallways on this installation, and I see the pictures and the names of my fallen comrades. We can't live forever. We gotta go someday. And I'll be proud one day that my picture will be on that wall. It's like, this is the Hall of Fame I want to be a part of.
For 250 years, the U.S. Army has defended its people, land, and the American way of life. At the dawn of our nation, farmers, craftsmen, and patriots stood against the mightiest empire in the world. These citizen soldiers took up arms to fight for independence and prevailed. At Lexington and Concord and through the bitter winter at Valley Forge, the Army fought for and secured our nation's freedom. 30 years later, in the War of 1812, the Army faced another test as British forces marched on our young republic. At Fort McHenry, under relentless bombardment, the Army held firm. "This will defend" was not just a rallying cry, it was a promise that ensured the sovereignty of our country. Then, the greatest test of all, the Civil War, pitted brother against brother in a nation divided. The Army fought not just for land, but for the preservation of the Union and for freedom. At Gettysburg, at Antietam, and beyond, they defended their belief in a unified country, which shaped the future of our nation. In the bloodiest battles of the 20th century, American soldiers answered the call, fighting wherever liberty was at risk. In 1917, as the world was consumed by war, the U.S. Army entered a conflict like no other. In the trenches of France, soldiers faced barbed wire, poison gas, and relentless artillery. At Cantigny, they launched their first major assault. At Saint-Mihiel, they executed a swift and decisive attack, proving American strength. And during the Meuse-Argonne Offensive, the largest battle in U.S. history, they shattered enemy lines, helping bring the war to its end. In In 1941, when the world plunged into war yet again, the Army was ready. From the deserts of North Africa to the hedgerows of France, from the islands of the Pacific to the streets of Berlin, U.S. soldiers carried the weight of the free world. On June 6, 1944, they stormed the beaches of Normandy, charging through the surf and gunfire and climbing cliffs against overwhelming odds. Victory was never certain, but they fought fiercely and triumphed. Their fight wasn't just for America. It was for millions silenced by tyranny. 5 years after World War II, another struggle for freedom erupted. In Korea, the Army faced not only a determined enemy, but brutal winters and impossible odds. In the Battle of Incheon, their fierce fighting forced the North Korean Army to retreat. At the Pusan perimeter, they held the line. And in the frozen hills of Chosin, they fought with every ounce of strength to defend liberty. But peace was fleeting. In the 1960s, as tensions escalated in Southeast Asia, the Army was called to Vietnam. In the dense jungles, soldiers fought a relentless battle against an elusive enemy. The Army's strength was on display in the Battle of La Drang, where soldiers held firm under extreme conditions. In the face of uncertainty, the Army showed unwavering commitment to their mission. In 1990, the Army was called to the Middle East as Iraq threatened to dominate its neighbors. From the deserts of Saudi Arabia to the streets of Kuwait, soldiers launched a decisive offensive, pushing back the forces of tyranny and restoring peace. In just 100 hours, the Army's swift and overwhelming force liberated Kuwait, proving the might of American power and determination. Then, in 2001, the world changed. The attacks on September 11th set in motion a new era of conflict. The U.S. Army stood at the forefront of the global war on terrorism, fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq. In the mountains of Tora Bora, soldiers pursued those responsible for the attacks. And in the streets of Baghdad, soldiers faced an insurgency determined to tear the region apart. Their commitment never wavered as soldiers confronted each new trial, ensuring the security of America and its allies in a world that had been forever altered. The nature of war changed, and so did the Army. Today, the Army stands ready for whatever is next. Faster, smarter, and more lethal than ever. Battle-tested and constantly evolving, today's Army thrives under pressure. Across every domain, land, air, sea, space, and cyber, the Army remains ready and engaged. Through training and transformation, the Army ensures soldiers are equipped, empowered, and prepared to win against any adversary. Artificial intelligence and advanced weapons are changing the way we fight. But our foundation stays the same, the warrior ethos. Mission first. Never quit. Never accept defeat. Never leave a fallen comrade. Wherever the need, soldiers show up to fight and to serve, ensuring the safety and security of the nation. The Army's legacy lives in those who step forward. And the next chapter? It belongs to those who are ready to lead, to adapt, and make the same promise that every soldier makes to the nation and its people. This will defend.
It wasn't that long ago that our only weapon was our hands. That has changed. The Army of tomorrow will move faster and see farther, yet it will be guided by the same compass that led generations before.
Stepping in the ring is a stressful ordeal. I mean, if it's a fight, you want to stay calm in the ring at all times. Mental discipline is a huge factor when it comes to boxing. So you have to work with, stress management, time management. In aviation, for drone operator, you can use those same tactics. I am a UAS drone operator. I came from field artillery to this job on the basis of just wanting a bigger challenge, wanting to pick up more skills. So I saw overall aviation as that challenge, a way to push myself forward both physically and also mentally.
A constant evolution in the Army's technological advantage has occurred since the Revolutionary War.
In the 250-year history of the Army, we have seen a lot of different innovations in tactics. In the Revolutionary War, one thing that gave us the edge over the British was their ability to incorporate guerrilla tactics against a traditional line style of fighting. Then in World War I, we switched to machine guns and trench warfare. Then around Desert Storm, we saw a switch to digital battle tracking so that a commander for the first time can know exactly where his units are in time and space.
Some of the tools of the Army of 2040 are AI and unmanned drones, meant to reduce the risk to soldiers' lives.
So what we're looking for is an army that is very innovative and adaptable. We want to field a lot of new technologies that increase the survivability of soldiers.
The revolutionary effort is led by specialized units called TIC units, or Transformation in Contact.
The goal of Transformation in Contact is to iterate quickly on new technology. We give it to soldiers, test it out, to give us feedback, implement changes, and then codify how we will employ these technologies.
The technology is advanced, but success still relies on the focused, disciplined soldier.
With the advent of technology, I think that this Army is going to continue to be able to shoot, move, and communicate better, but the soldier is going to get better and better and better.
The Army is not steel or strategy. It's people. It is citizens who raise their right hand and promise to serve something greater than themselves.
The saying, "This will defend," is the motto of the Army. The "this" of "this will defend" for me is the Constitution, because the Constitution guarantees all of the goodwill that this country enjoys.
When you go home, you look at your wife or your kids or your family, but that is this, of the American dream. The biggest moment of why I understood being a soldier was of an old man pointing to the flag patch on my shoulder and saying, "Thank you."
I'm grateful for the opportunity that I've had to serve in the Army. And like my father before me, to set that example to my children that duty is important and that there is an honor in sacrificing for others.
When I walk on any battlegrounds, it's sacred to me because people sacrificed and died there. And they chose to be there. And that's the thread that I see going all the way back to 1775.
To have the opportunity to be a part of a brother and a sisterhood that's been around 250 years, that's what our country provides, and that's what I want to defend.
The things that I am fighting to defend are God, family, country, so that when our nation calls, I will be able to say, "Send me."
250 years of sacrifice stand behind them. Countless tomorrows of service lie ahead. This is America's Army. These are America's soldiers.
This concert is for you. It's to celebrate the soldiers all the way back to 1775 through today. And it's to celebrate the Army's 250th birthday of serving this nation and defending this nation. With all that said, give it up for Mr. Gavin DeGraw.
What's going on? I'm here because my grandfather was a soldier and my father was a soldier so that I could be a poet. That's why I'm here. So thank you for your service.